The invisible geography of enterprise AI. When we talk about artificial intelligence in organizations, we talk about algorithms, models, adoption rates, and productivity. We almost never talk about place. This presentation is my attempt to fix that. It is a reflection on what happened when I, a researcher trained in panel data, patent counts, and fixed effects, read a book that asked one question I had never taken seriously: where? The default setting of modern research is nowhere. Standard social science research asks two questions: what happened and when? Where is mentioned once, usually beneath a heading that says research site, and then the paper moves on. Tuck and McKenzie call this the container myth. Western philosophy treats place as a neutral backdrop, a grid, a set of coordinates, mere background data. And so the specific land, the specific history, the specific community surrounding every organization we study is completely absent from our datasets. The firm exists, the data flows, but the place underneath it all, erased. Place is part of what research produces. Here is the same research paper, seen two different ways. Under visible light, this study was conducted in a mid-sized urban firm in Texas. One sentence, location as background. The paper moves on. But under a different light, the light that Tuck and McKenzie are asking us to use, that same sentence opens into questions. Whose land is Texas? What historical power dynamic shaped that firm's location? Whose knowledge gets counted as expertise inside that building? And whose knowledge was erased to make room for it? Where something happens shapes what happens, who gets to speak, what counts as knowledge, and whose knowledge gets erased. Globalization did not make place irrelevant. It made ignoring place more dangerous. The three dimensions of place-based research. Tuck and McKenzie organize their argument in three layers. The first is theory. Place is not neutral coordinates. Place carries history, power, and memory. Every location is a palimpsest, layer upon layer of what happened there, who lived there, and who was removed. The second is decolonization. This is the moral core of the book. Indigenous peoples have always understood land relationally, as ancestor, as teacher, as community. Colonialism did not just take land physically, it replaced an entire relationship to land with the concept of property. The third is methodology, taking place seriously in practice. Through archival work, narrative inquiry, mapping, and indigenous methods, the goal is to extract full context, not just surface data. How we treat place defines what we can measure. Chapter 4 stopped me. There was a table, a paradigm table mapping every way of knowing, from positivism through interpretivism and critical theory, all the way to indigenous and decolonial knowledge systems. Under positivism, the column I recognized myself in places a neutral container. Background variables. The resulting data is placeless, generalizable, sterile. Under interpretivism and critical theory, place becomes social context, culture and setting, more human but still detached from the physical earth. Under indigenous and decolonial frameworks, place is a relational entity: ancestor, teacher, stolen land, active participant. The resulting data is deeply contextual and historically accountable. I had spent years building the first kind of knowledge. Reading this table, I understood for the first time exactly what that choice cost. The publishable illusion of global AI adoption. Let me show you what my research looks like from the inside. A researcher, let's call him me, collects a panel dataset on 300 firms adopting enterprise AI systems. He measures productivity gains, IT investment levels, stock performance before and after implementation. His paper mentions firms in the US, India, and Kenya in a single sentence. His fixed effects model is clean, his R-squared is high, his findings are publishable, and his paper answers precisely which firms adopted AI successfully and why. It is a good paper, but it is a paper that exists nowhere. Applying the topographical lens, standard social science asks what happened and when. Tuck and McKenzie insist you must also ask, where did it happen? Whose land is that? And what does that mean for what I think I know? The same productivity score of plus 14% looks different when you ask what land that firm sits on, what history produced that workforce, and whose community absorbs the cost when the algorithm gets it wrong. The data did not change, the questions did. Silicon Valley, infrastructure. Built on extraction. Take the US dot on my map, Silicon Valley. A handful of tech companies controlling the AI infrastructure the entire world depends on. That infrastructure sits on Ohlone and Miwok territory. The algorithms it exports were built on data scraped globally from communities that never consented. And none of this, not the land, not the scraping, not the extraction, appears in the IT investment level variable. My model measured how much firms spent on technology. It could not measure what that technology cost the places it came from. Bangalore and Hyderabad, the legacy of colonial logistics. Take the India dot, Bangalore, Hyderabad, cities whose tech industries were deliberately shaped by colonial education policies designed to train a specific class of English-speaking workers to serve Western firms. The productivity gains flow upward, out of India into American shareholder returns. And the executives moving between these firms, carrying knowledge formed in this specific historical crucible, are treated in my dataset as generic human capital, placeless, historyless, just a coefficient in a regression. Nairobi, algorithmic imposition on local realities. Take the Kenya dot, Nairobi, Silicon Savannah, where AI systems designed in California are being deployed to make vital decisions, loan approvals, agricultural advice, healthcare recommendations, for communities whose languages, whose physical contexts, whose realities were entirely absent from the training data. The algorithmic errors do not fall on the shareholders, they fall on the land, they fall on the people. And in my dataset, that cost has no column. The physical weight of cloud computing. We call it the cloud, as if it floats somewhere above us, weightless, placeless. But data centers are physical objects. They sit on specific land. They consume massive amounts of water. They draw enormous quantities of electricity. These resources are extracted from specific communities with specific environmental consequences, consequences that will never appear in a standard productivity regression. AI is not in the cloud. AI is in the ground. Redrawing the vectors of global tech transfer. The standard view of global AI adoption shows clean arrows flowing from the US to the global South. Tech transfer, deployment, progress. But the place-based view shows something different. The same arrows. But now they carry data scraping, water and energy extraction, upward wealth transfer, and algorithmic imposition on unmatched contexts. The arrows still flow. But now they carry colonial history, resource extraction, and structural inequality with them. Decoding the variables of enterprise adoption. Here is what my standard research variables are actually measuring and what they are hiding. Productivity gains are also upward wealth extraction to shareholders. IT investment levels are also local water and energy depletion and server land usage. Deployment geography is also algorithmic imposition on non-consenting contexts. Human capital is also specific knowledge forged by colonial education policies. My variables are not wrong, but they are partial, and the parts they leave out are not small. Naming what our variables cannot hold my models measured adoption, they could not measure whose knowledge was inside the system, they could not measure whose land powered the servers, they could not measure whose community bore the cost of getting it wrong. Moving forward means naming what my variables cannot hold and staying honest about the difference. I am not ready to say my approach is wrong, but I am ready to say it is a choice, and choices have consequences for what we can see and what we cannot.